I've stayed at home. As a result, none of the company's trains ran through Milton Keynes, Bedfordshire and Northamptonshire.
Although everything was back to normal today, there are fears that if a solution isn't found, well, the same thing could happen again. Claire McGlasson reports.
Deserted platforms, empty tracks, carriages standing like ghost trains. Images that will haunt the rail company London Midland. A record of the day that 45,000 passengers were going nowhere. 27 trains cancelled at Northampton station because not enough drivers had volunteered to work. Disbelief from passengers at Northampton station today, where the trains were back on track.
Again, it's just typical of the rail system. They never have a backup plan, and then it's the customers that suffer.
Other people have to work, don't they? So it's their job at the end of the day.
And I don't believe it should be at the behest of the chaps who drive the trains that we should have a Sunday service or not. The trains are going backwards with our railways, not forwards.
The train drivers insist this is not official industrial action. But they're warning this could be just the beginning of regular Sunday chaos. London Midland has promised crisis talks to try to get to the bottom of the issue before this Sunday. Over the negotiating table, bosses will go head-to-head with the rail drivers' union, the RMT, whose staff failed to volunteer for work after pay for Sunday shifts was cut in half.
What's happened is there was an agreement in place that Sunday working would apply until the last Sunday in August, and then they would renew the agreement. The company has dragged its feet on what it intends to pay the enhanced rate for working Sundays, which was always paid at double time, after that date.
But can they persuade company bosses to pay up? London Midland says the double-time payments were a temporary measure to incentivise staff to volunteer over the summer months.
We need a long-term solution to this, and simply paying enhanced overtime for short-term fixes or putting on buses is not a solution. It's not good for the staff, it's not good for the company, it's certainly not good for our passengers. So what we need is a long-term solution to this problem.
MP Sally Keeble thinks the time has come for the government to take action and fine London Midland.
You wonder what planet people are living on. Times are tough and people are paid to provide a public service. There's a contract in place to provide it, and that's what has to be provided. And it should not be beyond the wit of the company and everybody involved in this to provide a 7-day roster for a 7-day service so people can get up and down on the train.
The Sunday disruption looks set to continue, but that could spell the end of the line for London Midland. More train cancellations, and the government could cancel their contract. Claire McGlasson, Anglia News, Northampton.
It's 13 minutes past 6. You're watching Anglia Tonight.
Now, coming up, we've got the weekend sport, and we're going to be dropping in on a couple of young thrill seekers. Now from closer to home, and Norfolk spending £200,000 on a new advertising campaign to promote itself worldwide.
The County Council wants to publicise Norfolk's assets, but perhaps rather controversially, it plays on an old phrase stereotyping local people as a bit backward. Malcolm Robertson reports.
An archetypal view of Norfolk, just the sort of image that the local council wants to promote to a wider audience, but also just the sort of perception it wants to challenge. In an advertising campaign launched today, it's selling the county as a tourist destination, but also as a vibrant place where international business can thrive and where thousands of jobs can be created.
World-class industries, normal for Norfolk.
Over the years, it's had its critics. In January, John Prescott ruffled a few feathers by asking why anybody would want to live in Norfolk. Jeremy Clarkson has made several barbed comments, and there's Noel Coward's famous observation, Norfolk very flat. Well, interestingly, and some would say also pretty ambitiously, the advertising campaign incorporates the slogan normal for Norfolk, which has been used to suggest that those in the county are, how shall we put it, a little intellectually challenged. Council Chief Executive David White travelled to London for the launch of the 7-month campaign. Isn't it counterproductive to be reinforcing old stereotypes?
No, they are potentially old stereotypes. We've come a long way since then. In fact, what it shows is also that Norfolk people have a good sense of humour. And for those that don't know of that normal for Norfolk, they'll think as a result of this campaign, Normal for Norfolk is indeed world class.
Many will still regard Norfolk as a bit of a rural backwater, perhaps not the sort of place you'd automatically pick for a glitzy advertising campaign. I asked local entertainer Ollie Day if he felt Norfolk people might be offended by the Normal for Norfolk tag. His garden well illustrates his roots.
I know that some people will sort of think that's a bit strange using that NFN, Normal for Norfolk. I know people used to scribble it down on hospital sheets, you know, if someone weren't quite the ticket, you know, that would be what they would put, NFN. So we're fairly thick-skinned here in Norfolk, I think.
The county may be heading in a new direction, but there are those quite happy that they're normal and in Norfolk. Malcolm Robertson, Anglia News.
Well said, Malcolm. Now, a group of residents at Beccles in Suffolk, whose lives have been made a misery by a colony of gulls, have been granted permission by the landowner to take action. People living in part of the town have complained about the noise and mess made by gulls on the old Fibronile factory site. Now, the site's owner, Anglia Regional Co-op, has given them authority to deal with the problem. The options include a possible cull.
Hundreds of people gathered in a Norfolk village yesterday to mark the 70th anniversary of the end of the longest strike in history.
Children in Burston set up their own strike school back in 1914 after their two teachers were dismissed for their left-wing views. It continued for 25 years. Martin Stew has the story.
Marching for the people. This is traditional socialism celebrating a struggle with authority nearly 100 years old. It's a story which started 95 years ago when the school's two popular teachers, Tom and Kitty Higden, were dismissed because the local landowner disapproved of their left-wing views.
So on the 1st of April 1914, the children from Burston School decided enough was enough and took strike action to support the Higdens. The leader of that strike was 13-year-old Violet Potter.
She led the children on a march around the streets. The Higdens then set up a makeshift school, originally using a blacksmith's workshop as a classroom. Violet Potter's daughter and former pupil of the school still has fond memories of being taught by Kitty Higden.
I always remember walking to school. She used to live up the mill road where you've been round. She used to come with her little bottle of water and a bit of bread and cheese.
Yeah. What was it about her that made her such a good teacher?
Well, as just a person, I suppose she was, you know, yeah. She was kind and, you know, thought a lot of the children, yeah.
The strike school, as it became known, was entirely reliant upon contributions from villagers and local labour groups. Union subscriptions even paid for a purpose-built school on the village green. It's a story of community solidarity, which has been celebrated with an annual march since 1984. The longest strike in history lasted 25 years until Tom Higden's death in 1939, but the legacy of the strike school lives on. Martin Stew, Anglia News, Burston in Norfolk.
Essex police have revealed